Welcome to November 22nd. It's a Tuesday, your day with the podcast brought to you by Cowboy State Daily. Go to cowboystatedaily.com or check them out on their Facebook page. Also brought to you by Chugwater Chili, the gourmet spice of Western life. Check out their chili steak rub. It's really, really good. With this nice weather, why not do some grilling? Use checkout code ChugwaterDon for 20% off at chugwaterchili.com. Nice weather again today. Basically, today is a carbon copy of what we had yesterday. So if you'll be hitting the roads and highways and the mountain passes, today the weather looks good. However, I've got to put in a however, because this front on Wednesday is looking a little more potent. Well, we mentioned yesterday, it's not going to turn into a big system. It is going to be enough, and it's badly timed, to cause some travel concerns for travelers, especially in Montana and Wyoming and the mountain passes of northern Colorado, maybe along the Wasatch Front, as well as this Pacific Front was going to come in with some Pacific moisture, enough Canadian air to bring some mountain snow and just enough snow on the plains to be a problem. We'll show you on the maps where we think that will be. Could there be snow down in the southern plains this Thanksgiving week? It's looking like a real possibility. We'll show you that. And it's going to be an active pattern for the start of December, which is much different than a year ago at this time. And there's a good reason for that. We'll show you why. Going back to Buffalo, looking at some of the amazing amounts there. Orchard Park, where the Buffalo Bills Stadium is, they actually went over 80 inches for the storm. When it gets to be that deep, honestly, it gets really hard to measure. But just some incredible amounts from that lake effect storm. Now, we're starting to see the ski areas open up. Again, this is a far cry from where we were last year. Grand Targhee is open, and Snow King is going to be opening earlier, I think this weekend, because of the early season snow and this recent bout of cold, which has made snowmaking really viable. A lot of snowmaking going on in the western United States, from the Black Hills, and also here in California. California ski area is off to a really good start. These are all areas in Colorado that are currently open, and in Utah as well. And this is why. These are the temperature anomalies since November 1st. So this is how November has gone so far in terms of temperatures compared to the 30-year average. So you can see how cold the western United States has been for the month of November. And if you go and take a look for the year, this is for the year. So for the year to date, since January 1, really a lot of the United States has actually had cooler than average temperatures from January 1. Not a blistering hot year at all across the lower 48 states. Now here we go with what's going to happen today. That mild westerly Pacific flow keeping our temperatures mild really across most of the United States. This is why travel weather today across a lot of the United States is really going to be fairly benign, except here in British Columbia, going into Seattle as this Pacific front comes on in. But as we go into late tonight and tomorrow, this system, which looks rather innocuous, is going to get amplified. As it drops south, it gets amplified because this ridge builds, causing this trough to deepen. And when that happens, this high pressure ridge actually drives energy and cold air into this system, making it stronger. So when you see a pattern that looks fairly straightforward, but then you get a big kink in it, well, that's when you get weather to form. And it's going to be happening right over Wyoming, Montana, and northern Colorado during the day Wednesday and into Wednesday evening. And the end result is going to be this area of precipitation with this front right here. Again, doesn't look like a lot, but it's going to be enough that if you're going to be traveling Wednesday, especially Wednesday afternoon and Wednesday night, in that area where you see the greens and the blues, there's going to be some snow falling. Not a huge storm, but enough if you've got travel plans in the region during the day tomorrow, especially Wyoming, Montana, and as you go into the mountain passes of Colorado, there's going to be some snowfall. And there it is for across the region. This is mostly coming Wednesday night, and we do think there may be some snow hanging on into the early morning hours of Thursday. And if they were to zoom in here, you can see where Wyoming is kind of getting picked on, and then You can see Interstate 80, Interstate 25. Then you can see up into the mountain passes, up even into the Black Hills. There's a bit of a downslope off the higher terrain into Wyoming, into the Front Range there, where we get this, we call this the snow hole that you can get in Larimer and Weld counties when there's a northerly wind. But you see the Palmer Divide here? So the wind's downslope off what we call the Cheyenne Ridge, causing the snow hole in Greeley and Fort Collins. But that same air goes uphill on the north side of the Palmer Divide. So into Castle Rock, Colorado Springs, southwest Denver, you actually can get some snow in these situations. And then you can see some snow here along Interstate 70 in Colorado. So this is a system that's going to produce a lot more weather than a lot of the weather forecasts have been indicating here over the last few days. Now, I want to talk about this threat for a Southern Plains storm system. Now, the same low that comes into Wyoming, into Colorado, actually gets cut off. Look at this. It drops all the way down into West Texas. And we're getting a fairly good agreement between the major modeling that this is indeed going to happen. And look at this. Now, this may be overdoing it, but this is developing as we get into, let's say, Thursday night, but this is more in the Friday, Saturday, Sunday morning time frame. The panhandle of Texas, back into east central and New Mexico along Interstate 40 here. Look at this. This is kind of a new development over the last 24 to 48 hours. I think there is a real possibility that while these amounts are probably exaggerated, there's going to be some accumulating snow, and this is a possible travel concern Friday through Sunday into that part of the United States there. Keep that in mind. There you can see that heavy precipitation forming. On the north side of this, as the system moves, a lot of this up here is going to be rainfall, some snowfall, but still affecting parts of the Midwest and the Northeast this weekend. Longer term, this goes out to next Tuesday and Wednesday, and you can see a trough of low pressure in the west. You see all those L's, a lot going on. This opens the door to colder weather, and it also opens the door to Pacific moisture into the Pacific Northwest and into the Northern Rockies. So it's going to be an active pattern next week. In fact, we might even have something to deal with over the weekend as well. Looking at the new long-range modeling, this is from the European model that goes all the way out to 46 days here. This actually takes us to January 5th and 6th. And one thing about the long-range modeling is they tend to underestimate the cold. So when you see the cold in the blue shading, it's showing it's cold, but it's likely going to end up being colder than the shading is representing. So when we see a lot of this blue across the United States for the month of December and the last days of November, this is that cold signal we were indicating yesterday is a real possibility. This is the snowfall through the next 45 days. Pretty darn impressive. This is Europe for the next 45 days. See the blue, and you see the areas that are white? If you're just average with temperatures, that's cold. That's cold for this time of year. And if there's a little bit of blue, well, that again is indicating a cold pattern and a snowy pattern, especially in Eastern Europe as well. Now, why are things a little bit different this year than last year when we're still in a La Niña? Well, as we have talked before about the North Pacific and the Gulf of Alaska, this is where this is really coming into play. At times over the last few weeks, we've been talking about the warm pool in the North Pacific and how that warm pool is a cold signal for Canada and the lower 48 if it holds. Now, there's been some developing colder waters there, but actually this warmer water is encroaching and coming back in. The North Pacific, relative to the 30-year average, is warmer. Again, these are not really warm waters at all, but they are just a little bit warmer. And then you can see the La Niña continuing to hold firm, but there's chinks in its armor showing up some weakness with some warming here and some warming here. So we're starting to see it fade a little bit, but it's still there. A year ago, this is what it looked like a year ago. You see how much bigger that cold pool was? That cold pool is a warmer signal for the lower 48. And what happened last November and December, we had this really powerful jet stream that just came in west to east. It didn't have the dips, and we didn't have that high pressure ridge building up like this that you get when the sea surface temperatures are warmer up there. So this is the difference. La Niña is still there, but the North parts of the Pacific, and importantly, that Gulf of Alaska, it's a different environment. And this is causing the pattern to be colder this year compared to this time last year. And this is why going into December, the pattern is going to stay active. Have a good Tuesday. We'll see you tomorrow.